How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, no voice crack at the beginning of this hour. It's Eric Erickson here across the nation from Jacksonville, Florida, where I'm here to do a bourbon event for local children's cancer charity. What better way to fight childhood cancer than to bring down my bourbon collection and let people pay money to fight childhood cancer and take care of the families who are going through it. Great hospitality here at WOKV. Glad to be here. I gotta say something. I'm going to tell on myself. I would have forgotten, but Chase was in here from WOKV, and I started telling him so. I didn't even think anything about it. So my son wants to watch Tropic Thunder. Yes, that movie with Robert Downey Jr. in blackface. And it's been a long time since I've seen that movie. So I started watching it on the plane ride down here last night. And a guy literally across the aisle from me taps me on the shoulder. And I take my earbud out. He says, "Hey, man, are you allowed to watch that movie in public?" Yes, I am. And I do think my 6-year-old could probably handle it. It's such a funny movie. But yes, Robert Downey Jr. These are the movies you could, I actually think in the age of Trump, maybe you could make them. And that kind of gets me exactly where I wanted to go is so Donald Trump rang the opening bell for the stock market today. And he had some words at the opening of the market with, of all people, Jim Cramer there.
I've always said, to me, stock market is all of it together. It's very important. It's an honor to be here at New York Stock Exchange. I sort of joked that I actually bought the building across the street because the stock exchange was here. It's a big deal.
40, it's a nice building.
40 Wall Street. So, look, we're gonna do things I think that haven't been really done before. We're gonna be cutting taxes still further. We got it down to 21%. We're gonna bring it down even below that. You pay 21 if you don't build here, and meaning your product or whatever it is you're building. And if you do, we're going to try getting it down to 15%. But you have to build your product, make your product in the USA.
It's not a bad deal. It's better than tariffs to do it that way. You add some tax incentive. Listen, if the Democrats can give you a $7,500 tax credit for buying an electric car, why can't we give businesses credits for bringing jobs back to the United States? That's actually not a bad idea, using tax incentive to create jobs in this country if it's possible. And you're not doing you're not doing punitive tariffs to discourage it. You're doing a tax deduction or tax credit with a tax rate to encourage it. That actually is a good way to proceed. So good for him for this. One more from Trump at the opening bell.
Well, we're going to be having a lot of talks with China. We have a good relationship with China. I have a surprising relationship. Now, when the COVID came in, I sort of cut it off. That was a step too far. That was, as they say, a bridge too far. But we've been talking and discussing with President Xi some things and other world leaders. And I think we're going to do very well all around. And we've been abused as a country. We've been badly abused from an economic standpoint, I think, and even militarily. We put up all the money, they put up nothing, and then they abuse us on the economy. And we just can't let that happen. We're not going to be abused anymore. We put America first, but we're also going to help other countries.
That's Donald Trump this morning with Melania Trump and Jim Cramer at the New York Stock Exchange, being interviewed on CNBC as he rang the opening bell for the New York Stock Exchange. He's also Time's Man of the Year. He actually gave it was a comprehensive interview with Time magazine, and one of the very funny questions they asked him is what to make of Kamala Harris and what mistake did she make on the campaign trail. And here, hang on, let me see if I can find the exact question. He says of her, what was Kamala Harris's, what big mistake did Kamala Harris make on the campaign trail? Taking the job. Taking the job. I thought it was very, very funny that that's his answer. And by the way, he's right. She took the job and she was in over her head. He knows she's in over her head. I think most people know. Yeah, okay, here it is. Speaking of Kamala Harris, what do you think were her worst mistakes in the campaign? Quote, taking the assignment. Number one, because you have to know what you're good at. I think that when she wouldn't talk to anybody, it shone a light on her. In other words, if she would have gone out and just did interviews where they're comparable to Steve, if there is anybody comparable, would say, could you do an interview here? And any interview there, she didn't do anything. And people said, is there anything wrong with her? Why would they? I mean, I'm doing this interview with you. I did interviews with, if I had the time, anybody that would ask. I do interviews. I think the Joe Rogan interview, that went on for almost 3.5 hours. I found it a pleasure to do it. He was an interesting guy. I wish I could have done it even longer. I had a rally that I had 2.5 hours late for in Michigan. It was very cold. We didn't lose anybody, but I explained to him, listen, I just did an interview. We got to win this thing. But I was 2.5 hours late. I didn't know it was going to be 3. I thought it was going to be an hour or something, but he did the interview. Kamala Harris didn't do any interviews. All of this is to say the left's not having a normal one today. They're furious that Trump's being treated as normal because they refuse to accept him as normal. They refuse to relate to him as normal. And meanwhile, the current president of the United States of America is out issuing mass clemencies and pardons. In fact, of the people who were pardoned, 2 are Chinese spies. One of them is heavy into child pornography, and not just heavy into child pornography, 47,000 image into child pornography. This is the largest grant of clemency and pardons in a single day since Barack Obama, at a time the Democratic Party is claiming they're going to no longer be soft on crime. Real hard to say you are not soft on crime when you're out there granting mass clemency and pardons. In stunning contrast, Donald Trump, Scott Jennings was on CNN earlier this morning talking about this Trump transition and the normalization of Trump and Trump as the comeback king.
Just talk to us about what sort of impact the president-elect has had on the shape of U.S. politics this year alone.
Well, first of all, it's the greatest comeback story in American political history. I mean, when you think about all the things you just listed that he survived, from the political stuff to the lawfare to the assassination attempts to the Democrats changing out their campaign, when you think about all the unprecedented stuff that he had to survive in order to come back from losing in 2020 to winning not just the Electoral College, but the popular vote in 2024. There's never been anything like it. One of the superpowers of Donald Trump is that he's the breaker of narratives. And there were always narratives around him that he could never win the election, that the case in New York was going to bring him down, that, this or that was going to be the thing that finally brought down Donald Trump, or that Kamala Harris was the greatest presidential candidate we've ever seen, and so on and so forth. Trump is the breaker of narratives, and I think he exposed really the political information distribution complex in this election for what it is, which is often a distributor of narratives and not facts. And a lot of people came out and supported Donald Trump because they felt like they were being lied to by the current administration. They had a real mistrust of the policies that had been instituted. They were upset about the economy. The border was, and I think he's right, the border was really on people's minds for all of the societal impacts of that. And he broke all of the narratives around it that was coming out of the media and coming out of the Democrats, and won this huge victory. I think it's earth-shattering what he did, not just for politics, but the way we as Americans receive and process our political information. He kind of bypassed, in some ways, the mainstream media and went right to these alternative media sources, and it turns out his entire strategy around that was correct.
Yes. Yes, it was. And the Democrats can't understand this. And they're very angry about Donald Trump's ability to break into non-traditional forms of media and have conversations that they don't like to have and they don't want people to have. Remember a while back, it was just talk radio. And the left could vilify, in particular, Rush Limbaugh more than anyone else because he was the symbol of talk radio. But now you have podcasters. And Joe Rogan, of course, is the big symbol of podcasting in this country. And so they have Joe Rogan as the target, but it's so much more than that. And these people on the left are furious that you don't have to rely on MSNBC for news. Jasmine Crockett is a Democrat. She is upset with all the other platforms people can get their news from. She was on with Kristen Welker on Meet the Press's weekday show on MSNBC.
Why do you think Democrats lost, and what do you think needs to happen by the midterms and the next presidential election in order to find your footing again?
Well, Kristen, no disrespect to you. I think you do great work. But the reality is that those that tune in to our traditional news sources, they absolutely went for us. And we know that the standards that you have to live by as an actual journalist are completely different from other platforms. And so we know that we were winning for those that were tuning into the traditional news sources. But when it came down to people getting their news from places that really aren't even news sources, they were going for Donald Trump by 19 points. And that is exactly why we lost. The reality is that we're going to have to play in spaces that we've never had to play and make sure that we're communicating in all ways. Unfortunately, we can't just rely on the mainstream media to get our message across.
No, you can't. But listen to the arrogance of that. We know that the people who consume mainstream media news over everything else, that they were voting for us. So the people who listen to MSNBC and read the New York Times, I could have told you that. That's not rocket science. And increasingly, we have alternative platforms because we know, as Scott Jennings said in that clip, so much of the news media, he was very polite in how he framed it, but so much of the news media is interested in telling narratives, not facts. They don't want the truth. They want the story being told. They leave out facts to shape their story. A protagonist and antagonist. It's all about storytelling for them. And Americans have figured it out, and they've left the mainstream media. Think about the story we focused on yesterday on immigration. Now that Biden and Harris have lost, the New York Times is free to tell the story of immigration. But, you know, one of the spins on immigration is that if you mass deport these people, it's going to cost a lot of money to do it, and prices are going to go up. But if you actually read the New York Times story, they say one of the reasons we have a housing shortage in this country is all the illegal aliens. One of the reasons wages have been kept low in this country is all the illegal aliens. So the economies of scale will change if they leave, and some things will get more expensive, but some things will get cheaper. But they didn't want to tell that story first. And Jasmine Crockett is upset, as is so much of the media, that Americans would go to other outlets, that Americans would not just listen to MSNBC or ABC, CBS, NBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post, USA Today. Americans might actually go to other outlets. They can't fathom it. They don't like it. They're mad about it. And you know what's going to come over the next 2 years is a systemic approach to the left to go after advertisers who advertise on conservative podcasts and radio shows and Fox News to try to deprive the right of revenue in order to function. That, of course, is going to be what happens. They've already started it. It's only going to get worse, but I don't think they're going to be successful at it because ultimately the advertisers want to go where the eyeballs and the ears are, and that happens to be conservative talk, conservative podcasts, and Fox News. And that's just going to make them even more unhinged. Welcome back. Okay, those of you on the phones, be very patient with me because I want to spend time in the next segment on all of your phone calls. And listen, I do need to tell all of you who are calling in that we're having a technical issue. We haven't been able to get it fixed yet, where when you call and the line disconnects, it means all the lines are full. It should be a busy signal. We don't know what's happening. We're working on it. My apologies. The phone lines work fine. It's just we have only so many lines. People are waiting, and I want to take phone calls. But I got it. So I got Kobe is now going to be in charge of the show. He's the board operator. And I need him to know something very important. And for all of you to know so that Kobe knows you all know. Mark Aram, who is on my flagship station, sent me a picture. And Kobe is dressed for the wintertime. And he just needs to know that he can control his air conditioning. Okay, so now the backstory here is that Jim, who left us yesterday, wonderful guy, been there for over 2 decades, would come in bundled up like he was going to the Arctic and then crank the air down. And I would freeze. So he finally would come in, but then he would crank the air up and I would sweat. And there was never a happy medium, but it is your room. And as a result, you now get to set the air wherever you want. So you can take the beanie off and the jacket and everything. I promise. I'm only giving you a hard time on the first day. From here on out, it's Charlie who will give you the hard time, and everything else will be fine. But, oh, my gosh, I will never have to watch you eat spaghetti in the room, which in and of itself is worth you being there. Y'all, poor Jim, God bless him, I love him, but he would eat spaghetti almost every day. So yesterday, for his last day, we ordered Maggiano's, and we had cheese ravioli, and we had lasagna. And twice during the show, Jim said, something feels off. I don't have my lunchbox with me today. Like, because we fed you, Jim. Now we can harass Kobe instead. All right, I got to move on. I'm going to take your phone calls here on the other side of this break, 877-973-7425. Do not forget, if you want to help donate some money so that every child in foster care in Georgia gets a present, text the word donate to 33777. I'll send you back the link to Clark's Christmas Kids. Right now, I need to tell you about Americans for Prosperity. They organized the conservative coalition in Washington to block the National Labor Relations Board pick that Joe Biden was trying to get across the finish line, and they killed it. Americans for Prosperity organized that coalition. They had their activists in key states calling their senators saying don't do this, and it worked. They deserve a lot of credit for it. You can be a part of that by going to americansforprosperity.org/volunteer. You'll be trained to be an effective conservative advocate, to talk to your local government and state government about common sense conservative reforms, or to call your members of Congress and the Senate to protest action, stop action, support action. They'll train you to be the smartest member of your circle of friends and give you all the information you need to educate others. All you do, go to americansforprosperity.org/volunteer. americansforprosperity.org/volunteer. They've got chapters in almost every single state. They would love to have you in your state, be a part of it. americansforprosperity.org/volunteer. Welcome back. It's Eric Erickson here. The phone number, 877-973-7425. Let's go to the phones. We're going to start with Hakeem. You're going to be up first on the Eric Erickson Show. How are you, sir? We'll put you on hold and come back to you and make sure you're there, because we're not getting you. Well, nope, he dropped. Lynn, let's go to you. How are you?
Hello, I'm fine, thank you. I was calling about Luigi Mangione situation, and Francis Schaeffer predicted back in the 1980s that once you devalue one human life, then the stopper's out of the tub for all human life. And so this problem goes back to the callousness of our conscience since abortion has been legalized. And it's just a natural outcome. And what can you expect from a culture that's been raised to think that that human life is not sacred?
Okay, so Lynn, you started it, so anyone who complains with me going where I'm about to go, it's Lynn's fault, it's not my fault. So one of my favorite seminary professors made this point that, so when you read Genesis, there's the account of Noah, and when he gets off the boat, One of the things God says to Noah is that if any animal or any human being kills a human being, that animal or that human must be killed. Now, by the New Testament times, it's very clear. Paul writing in Romans, we outsource this to the government. It's not vengeance is ours, vengeance is the Lord's. But God was very clear in Genesis that when you take a human life, that person who killed the innocent human must be killed. When you shed human blood, there's something about human blood. And in fact, this is my side theological belief for you, and it's just me. I don't apply this to anyone else, it's just me. I don't eat blood sausage and meals with blood in them because God told Noah, don't eat blood. Now, I know some of you are saying, what about Peter and the New Testament? Well, that had to do with the laws of Moses and the food laws in Moses. I think the blood rule still applies, and here's why. Because it was given to Noah before covenantal times, before the covenant of law. It was given to Noah and applied to all people in the same way. Anyone who kills someone must be killed. And why did God, and that's my side dietary thing, is that I just don't believe that God wants me to. You can disagree. I'm not applying myself to you. I'm just telling you. But why kill someone who kills? Isn't that counterintuitive? No. The reason is because if anyone devalues human life, that person needs to be erased from the gene pool, lest the gene pool get polluted by those who devalue life. And the seminary professor of mine says it is not a coincidence. It is not a coincidence that in the societies that are getting rid of the death penalty, those societies tend to be the most in favor of abortion and the most in favor of euthanasia. And I never thought about it that way. The societies that are most likely to oppose the death penalty as a punishment for murder are the societies most in favor of euthanasia and abortion. Why? Because those societies signaled they devalued life. They allowed it into the gene pool. When you go back to the Old Testament, a lot of people who decide they're atheists, in fact, I got a friend, he says this is why he's an atheist. The mass murder, that God seems to be fine with mass murder. God tells the Israelites to go in and wipe out everybody. But what do you see when Israel goes in? They never wipe out everybody, with like one exception. They don't wipe everybody out. And then those people come into intermarriage, and the Israelites would take on their pagan ways. And that's why God, look, we are all going to, every single one of us, myself included, going to hell. We're all deserving of separation from God. That's what hell is, the separation from God. We all deserve it. Only, I believe as a Christian, we put our trust in Christ, do we then reconnect with God. All of us otherwise, the default position is we're all eliminated. And that's what you see in the Old Testament. The people who are of God's people, they are God's chosen means to eliminate others. But what happens when you don't is their ways then intermingle and those pagan ways take over. Now, that's my theology point here, but it never struck me till I heard the seminary professor point out that, yes, if you do an overlay on euthanasia and abortion, those countries most likely to have gotten rid of the death penalty are the countries in the West most likely to have devalued life enough. But side note here, the corollary here is countries that are totalitarian. Totalitarian countries have the death penalty and also euthanasia and also abortion. Why? Because they've devalued life as well. Because in devaluing life in a totalitarian country, they manifest it differently than a Western society. In a totalitarian country, the devaluation of life is manifested as oppression and a rejection of liberty. Where God is, there is liberty. In a totalitarian society, there is no liberty because they've driven God out of communist society, totalitarian society. But it is a mirror image of a secular Western democracy that has also driven God out and now devalues life. And what do you see? The people who murder get life on death row, but the children get killed and the elderly get killed. because they devalued life. So, yes, Lynn, it's all your fault. To Francis Schaeffer's larger point, it is your fault. 877-973-7425. Lynn's fault that I went off the reservation to that tangent. But nonetheless, it's a great point. I wish I had thought of it because she's right. All right, Killian calling from Jonestown, Pennsylvania. Welcome.
Hey, Eric, how you doing?
I'm good. Oh, okay, I got to ask you a question. I'm going to hijack the conversation out of the gate. Have they changed the law yet, or are you still, like, restricted in how you can buy a beer?
No, not necessarily. I actually just finished my last Killian beer just yesterday, believe it or not. It's
to buy alcohol in the state of Pennsylvania, it's a racket. That's all I'm going to say. But nonetheless,
Yes,
that's not why you're calling.
Yep. I was calling because I just heard from the Shapiro podcast earlier this morning. Bill Burr and a bunch of other celebrities are now on the page of celebrating Luigi killing the CEO of United Health. And I was thinking about it, and I thought, why don't the CEOs of these insurance companies approve of all these celebrities if they're insured by them to be canceled for supporting terroristic threats against them?
Not a bad idea, except there actually is federal regulation on this that insurance companies are not allowed to cancel the insurance of people because of their political beliefs, because they're so regulated as near monopolies. They're not allowed to do it. It would be funny if they did. Okay, if I can confess my sins to you guys, I'm having a real hard time not making Mario references every time people start talking about Luigi here. Yeah. It is hard. In fact, I gotta tell you, somewhere in America, there is a public defender named Mario who could do the funniest thing ever if he would just go represent Luigi. That's what I'm saying. But I know
that's a good one.
I shouldn't say it. What's that?
Oh, sorry. I didn't know if I was still on the line or not.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's going to get me in trouble. Listen, Kelly, thanks for the call all the way from Pennsylvania. Y'all, I'm having the hardest time saying Mario jokes with Luigi. The jokes write themselves. It's too bad because this guy's allegedly a murderer of an innocent man, but also his name is Luigi. Who names their kid Luigi? Erickson, you're named Eric Erickson. Who names kids that? My dad, whose name is Eric Erickson, after his dad, whose name is Eric Erickson, all the way back. Luigi, Mario. What he needs is he needs Mario, and the assistant's got to be named Peaches. It's got to be. Before Judge Bowser. That's all I'm going to say. Okay, I got to stop. I'm going to get myself. People are going to be offended by me. Seriously, when's the last time we've had a murderer in this country named Luigi? I feel like there's a fettuccine Alfredo joke in there somewhere, and you're not supposed to joke about this stuff. But as you know, as longtime listeners of this program, I have a morbid, demented sense of humor. I am the guy with the kid who went to his Bible class telling dark humor jokes to the Baptist preacher to call me at home. That is my family. And did you know they say that people with dark senses of humor are more likely to get dementia? I don't think that's the case. But if it is the case, on the upside, you'll be able to make me laugh at the same joke repeatedly with the same punchline because I'll never remember. And I think there's something marvelous about that. Dark humor. I'm a big fan. Y'all, no, I'm not gonna tell his joke. Y'all would wonder about me, but I just got to say, my son, if he could be a stand-up comedian and an architect at the same time, I think he would. In fact, my buddy Braden, I mentioned this before, I've got to figure out how to pull this off. So my buddy Braden came up with this idea. Everybody on my team is horrified by it except for me. My birthday is in June. And I'm really thinking I need to find a comedy club that will take everybody's cell phones away so that it's unrecordable. and just stand on stage and tell all the stories, not jokes, not stand-up comedy, just all the very funny stories that I can't tell on this radio program because of language and other reasons. And I just think it would be a fun thing to do, and just finally like get all of those stories out on a live mic before a live audience, as like you're coming to help me celebrate my birthday, and I get to stand up there and tell these stories. And people are horrified, horrified that I would actually want to stand up there and tell these stories because it might leak out on the internet and get me canceled. But y'all, I'm thinking we confiscate the phones. It would be a fun night. That's all I'm saying. I won't tell any Mario and Luigi jokes, I promise. But nonetheless, we'll see if I can pull that off. I just think it would be a fun thing to do. I got stories that I can't tell on radio. They're not appropriate for radio, but they're funny. Nonetheless, I need to move on and tell you about Vision Computers, because if you've got a vision for your business for this coming year and you want to upgrade your technology, now might be the time you're thinking about it because of the tax offsets for this year's taxes. Vision Computer can build those computers for you, or if you want to need a Christmas present. You call Vision Computers and say, hey, look, I got a computer, and here's the concern that I know you have as a business owner or an individual. You've already got a computer. You got to worry about moving the applications over, moving the preferences over, moving the documents over, moving the system settings over, moving email over. Vision can do all of that for you. So your new computer is set up like your old computer, except it's new, it's faster, it's better, it responds better, and you get their 5-star customer service for free with a special number that you call, and 15 seconds or less, you get the answer to whatever you need. You got a document on your computer, you can't find it. You know you saved it. You don't know where it is. Vision will find it for you. 15 seconds or less, you call them. They can even remote in. They can handle printer support. They can handle they can handle email support. They can do all of this. And let's say, hey, listen, mom or dad, you've got a kid out there in the gig economy. You know, they're freelancing at the local Starbucks. They got their laptop, but they don't have IT support behind them. They got to be their own IT guy. Well, you can get them for Christmas Vision's tech support for the next year, $179 per computer. And your kid who's in the gig economy and you don't know why after paying for the college degree and they're sitting in the Starbucks working, they'll be able to call Vision Computers and have an entire IT support team behind them so they can make money and finally make you proud with their women and gender studies degree while they're banging away as a writer at the local Starbucks blogging for somebody. Vision Computer can have their back, take care of them, make sure there's no downtime for them. They're awesome. And if you tell them I sent you, you're going to save even more money. So call them at 404-COMPUTE, 404-COMPUTE, or go to visioncomputers.com. Tell them I sent you. You're going to save even more money. 404-COMPUTE or visioncomputers.com. Welcome back. I was just sent this audio. It is to Jayla Brown, who is a George Mason University communications student. She interviewed Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on the steps of the U.S. Capitol. Started playing without me. That's okay. I'm going to fire up this audio for you because let's hear if she uses a but. Let's just hear if she uses a but.
Taken from a diagnosis. And I think that this collective American experience, which is so twisted to have in the wealthiest nation in the world, all of that pain that people have experienced is being concentrated on this event. And it's really important that we take a step back. This is not to comment, and this is not to say that an act of violence is justified, but I think
there it is. There it is. This is not to say an act of violence is justified, but okay, what comes on the other side of the but? Let's roll this back a little bit.
Is justified, but I think for anyone who is confused or shocked or appalled, they need to understand that people interpret and feel and experience denied claims as an act of violence against them. People go homeless over the financial devastation of a diagnosis that doesn't get addressed, or the amount that they're going to have to cover with a surprise bill and things like that. And when we kind of talk about how systems are violent in this country.
Wait, systems are violent now.
Passive way,
Words are violent. Systems are
our
violent.
privatized healthcare system is like that for a huge amount of Americans.
Oh, good Lord. So a system, a privatized system of healthcare insurance is violent. You know, if you make it a public system, people are also going to have claims denied. Is that violent too, or is it no longer violent because it's the public doing it and not the private sector? This is the weirdness, the contradictory nature of their argument. A public system also has things denied. In Canada, for example, when you're depressed and they don't want to fund your medicines for depression, they send you out to assisted suicide. So in those systems, they're actually exterminating your life, not just denying your claim. Is that violence or not? Is exterminating someone's life because you don't want to pay for them anymore, is that violence? I'm not sure. Is it just the system is violent? This is where we are when you can add the but. When you can add the but after violence is wrong, but when you can do that, you can justify anything, including the extermination of a human being because of the company he worked for. And then you're going to go after the oil executives, and then you're going to go after the abortion clinic doctors, and then you're going to go after the trends affirming doctors, and then you're going to go after the politicians as well. And they're already coming for Donald Trump, because if words are violent, all the violent words spoken on MSNBC about Donald Trump have provoked people to try to kill him. And they are never going to learn the lesson until they're shot at. And you don't want them shot at, and I don't want them shot at. But you can see where this leads, because they're unwilling to learn lessons that they need to desperately and quickly learn. Never justify taking someone's life with a but. Never do it.